So, Chris, it is the After Hours for episode 11, our lager episode.
It is. Actually, it's interesting because we mentioned we'd taken a break in the episode. And isn't it nice to be back chatting to you, Pete? I've loved it.
Yes, absolutely. Famously, we never talk outside of recording, minus the hangover.
Not true. Actually, well, life does get in the way a little bit here and there.
Does, of course.
But it was so nice just kind of revisiting that we recorded the episode. I mean, I enjoyed that in itself. But even just looking forward to coming and doing this process where we talk about the episode as well.
Yes,
I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I was kind of thinking about, as we always do, like, what are we actually going to talk about in this After Hours? I suppose the main thing is that we changed the structure, didn't we? We changed how the episode worked. But the thing is, listening back to it, we kind of talk about the reasons why. I mean, we could go into that again, but I don't really see what the point is. The big question for me really is, did we come in on time? Have we made a shorter episode for having made all those changes?
Well, kind of. I mean, so obviously, you know that basically I hadn't had the chance to fully edit the episode.
Yes.
Before we listened to it again just recently. Yeah. Now, I know that we're not going to come in on time, basically. Oh. So
it's quite funny listening to an unedited version because, Pete, I've got to say, I didn't realise just how much I say and and how many awful mouth noises I make and all of these things that you usually edit out before you send it back to me to listen to do these after-hour episodes.
Mate, it takes me so long. But to be honest, I'm far worse. I reckon I'm at least 2/3 of that issue. You're the remaining 1/3. So don't feel too hard on me. It's mainly self-inflicted.
Seriously, man, well done for the efforts that you do.
Thank you.
It's kind of amazing because it goes so unseen, or rather unheard, because... we just record and we're in the moment and we're following, a script that we've written and things like that. But whenever I get to then listen to the episode, I don't hear all that other gumph that gets in the way. So, you wade through it. Well done. Hats off to you.
Thank you. So let's move swiftly on from that. All this adulation's making my head grow even bigger. Yeah. So... the other thing we have done in the past in our After Hours is look back at our verdicts on our tastings, of course. So in this case, obviously, it was Asahi Super Dry Zero and the St. Etienne Zero as well, wasn't it?
That's right.
So in terms of the Asahi, have you changed your mind? We both gave it thumbs up.
Yeah, mine was pretty glowing, I remember. And I loved it then. I love it now. I think it's really good. I really do.
Yeah, me too. I've had another one since that episode, probably more than one actually. And it's just a really well put together beer that you can taste lots of different layers to it. And they've done a sterling job. Actually,
you mentioned in it how there's this sort of narrative that unfolds, the journey of having a drink, if you like. Awful term, I know, I've turned into that person. But I kind of think there's something to it. The more I thought about it, the more I was like, with every sort of sip of it, I felt like I got something rather than I just got used to it very quickly and then finished it. It's an interesting and really well balanced, but there's a lot going on. It's a good beer.
Yeah, it's a good beer. Yeah, absolutely.
But there was that one aspect of the Asahi tasting that got me thinking a little bit. So you mentioned in it how they use corn in the recipe. Now, you thought that was to make it less malty.
Yes.
I got thinking about all these strange, or possibly not strange, I don't know, but strange to me, things that are used in making NoLo drinks of all descriptions. Maybe there's a discussion for the future that we should have, like the strange ingredients or the techniques, the little tricks that they've used to, I don't know, develop the taste or help the body, or maybe reduce the body, lots of different things. What do you think to kind of returning to that as a subject for the future?
Yeah, I think either looking at beer specifically, because I think I've used the word adjuncts before, and it's essentially anything that's in beer that isn't essentially barley or yeast or water. And yeah, I think most people, when they think of what goes into beer, they don't think of corn or rice or quite a few other things, or sugar even. Sometimes Belgian breweries will put sugar in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think maybe looking at that in a future episode would be good. And then as sort of a separate issue, you've got maybe what producers put in differently into their standard versus NoLo drinks. I think that's definitely something worth looking at. And actually, in terms of Asahi, one thing I noticed after doing the episode is that actually the recipe for Asahi Zero isn't the same as the standard Asahi Super Dry. So the standard one, the standard one has got rice in, which I kind of was expecting. I forgot that it had it in.
Yeah, I think I knew that. Yeah.
Whereas the Zero one doesn't have rice in, and that kind of confused me a little bit. One of the things I think you can tell from that is that obviously the Zero product isn't just their standard beer with the alcohol taken away. It's clearly a very separate, deliberately crafted recipe. And
I see what you mean. Yeah.
And I mean, other beers do that as well. So like Heineken, I'm sure I read that Heineken Zero is actually two different beers which they mix together. So it's not even just kind of like one beer like the standard one. It's kind of weird. So yeah, just the fact that clearly all these kind of like really big producers, they're not doing what you might think is sort of the lazy option. They're clearly spending a lot of time and energy trying to craft a different recipe to make it taste as much as possible like the original.
Yeah, I mean, in the episode, I actually postulated about how all that kind of different brands that they've got might have, distilled down. I made that awful pun about how it's distilled down to help them make it. And you said maybe the credit should be that they've certainly had a lot of investment into finding the right recipe, and maybe part of that is that it really they've built it from the ground up to emulate it rather than just take what they already had and change it. I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah. The other thing as well, that's something to do with the fact that they've got corn in there and rice in the standard one, is that actually I said in the episode that it wasn't gluten-free, and it certainly wasn't labelled as being gluten-free, but it might well be kind of legally gluten-free. So they clearly haven't tested it, or at least if they have tested it, it's coming above, although I think they haven't tested it. And I think that it probably comes in at somewhere below the kind of the legal limit for food that can be advertised or labelled as gluten-free. So that's basically 20 parts per million of gluten in a particular food or drink or whatever. Now, I think it comes in under that. Now, if I was celiac, if I had an actual kind of like allergy, the kind of gluten-related disease, I wouldn't try it. If I was gluten intolerant, I might give it a go. Basically, normal beer that's quite pale and quite weak, even though it's got barley in it, it's like 95% water anyway. Yeah. So even though it's got kind of gluten-containing ingredients in there, by this time you've watered it down, it comes in below the level of 20 parts per million. So as I say, kind of standard beers, if it's like 4%-ish and very pale, it might be technically gluten-free.
Yeah, the gluten hasn't carried over by the time you get to that kind of...
Well, it's just been watered down essentially.
Yeah,
so much.
Okay.
And if you think that this isn't just containing barley, but a big proportion of the cereals are corn and rice. So there's even less barley in it than like an all barley beer. So you're starting off with a lower kind of gluten concentration, and then you're kind of watering it down as well. So I think maybe that could actually be technically gluten-free.
Interesting as well that it's there's a legal threshold that might not be quite the accurate truth to the nth degree. That there's a tiny bit of gluten, but if it doesn't reach that legal threshold, they can say it has none.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite common because at the end of the day, you're never going to have something which is completely gluten-free, or anything which is completely free of mushroom spores or something, or Or,
Okay,
there's yeasts in the air, as we've discussed in previous episodes, and kind of like, so you can never say something is completely yeast-free. So what they do is they have tests that will just detect it at certain levels, and you've got to pick a boundary, above that is basically it's not gluten-free, below that is gluten-free, because the vast majority of people won't react to that level of gluten, essentially. So that's why there's that kind of, they had to pick a number somewhere, basically.
Actually, there's echoes of the is it alcohol or isn't it alcohol, containing alcohol conversation, which we've had more than once. And yes, it's very difficult to pin down what the legal status is of that, but also where and how you pick that boundary, that cut-off point, that threshold, if you like. So
that's part of the big argument. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. I just hadn't thought of it in those terms, and I certainly hadn't thought of it for gluten. But interesting. Do you think then the fact that, why they haven't tested it, would they benefit if they did label it as gluten-free if it was? I don't know. Why do you think they might have not done that?
A couple of reasons. One's cost, because you do need to get each batch tested. And what happens if it's slightly variable? Let's say it's somewhere near the limit. Sometimes it's gluten-free, sometimes it isn't. Then as a consumer, if I'm avoiding gluten, then I can't rely on that brand. But also, if you've got like a bunch of bottles labelled up as being gluten-free and it isn't, what are you going to do with all those bottles? So,
and as a producer, that's a nightmare, isn't it? You can't sell something that it isn't, or pretend that it's not what it actually is.
Absolutely. You absolutely could not sell it as being gluten-free, labelled as such, if it was 21 parts per million. But you could if it was 19. Oh. So,
that's a rabbit hole. There we go.
You've got to pick a number, I suppose.
I guess you do. Yeah, I guess you do. And to be fair to them, these things always seem arbitrary, kind of approach from the outside. But someone somewhere has made that decision, and they're kind of living by that, I suppose. I don't want to be overly harsh on Asahi just because they've overlooked that part. Maybe they all do. Maybe there's a bit of a question mark over all the ones that we see that aren't labelled as gluten-free. Maybe many of them are, but these are the reasons why.
Yeah, no, some of them will be technically, as I say, but it's often easier not to. And also, if you're a big kind of like a multinational, you do a lot of brands. If you've got a gluten-free brand of beer, why would you want to dilute that brand kind of raison d'etre, as it were? You've got a gluten-free brand of beer, so why are you...
That's its USP. Why would you...
That's the word I was looking for, thank you, USP.
Bolt that onto another brand. Yeah,
exactly. So I think it's more complicated than simply just saying... well, why doesn't everyone do it, or why does everyone do it? So lots to it.
Interesting. Cool. Well, actually, speaking of other brands, Asahi was our first tasting. Yeah. We also did a tasting for St. Etienne.
Yes.
Any reflections on St. Etienne after the fact?
So I don't think so. Not really. So I think maybe I was being a little bit harsh, and I think because it was a very straightforward one-note experience. Coming immediately after a really delicious kind of multi-leveled flavour beer. So I think just, in comparison, it was nowhere near as good. Having said that, I still probably wouldn't buy it for the same reason. So, it's kind of like there's an opportunity cost. Even though the price was cheap, it was 89p, I think, wasn't it, or something for 500 mil.
Yeah, which is good, which is a good price. Yeah,
it's good value, and if you like that kind of beer, which is very simple and, as I said, sort of cheaply made, but that's fine. If you like that kind of beer, it's great value. For me, I'm not going to buy it. So I'm still thumbs
We've always
down.
said that's all we can do, isn't it? We can only really go with what we think. You know what? I'm the same, actually. I've got a little wriggle room in what I said about it. Funnily enough, since then, I've had a barbecue. The sun has started shining, and I've had a barbecue.
Yes.
And I got to thinking, would now be a good time to have that sort of beer, because I'd mentioned it.
I was going to say, absolutely.
Well, I still think that is the home of it. That is when, you've got some in store, if you like. it's kind of there. You reach for something. It's a NoLo. No one's really going to think about it too much. It's sort of fine. But then I've got to counter that with what you said about the opportunity cost. And, we've got quite a lot of different sorts of NoLos in the house because we do this podcast. Yeah?
Yes, absolutely.
St. Etienne would not be one that I'd be reaching for again over so many others. So I'm the same. I'm going to stick with a thumbs down. But having now had a barbecue, I do think it's sort of got that place. I'm so torn. But I'm going to stick with it. I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's fair enough. And the other thing as well, of course, about the St. Etienne one, we were talking about the Brasserie Sainte-Mère, I think, was the brewery. Another thing that I am cutting for time is the list of other beers that you did.
Yes, I know.
With some really quite interesting strengths and names and kind of brands from there.
Yeah, again, cut for time, but I think it's a quite interesting list. So what I actually want to do now, Pete, I want to play just that little section because it's not that long. It didn't really fit in the main episode, but we'll play that now. But I want to do it partly because just the mention of Brasserie de Sainte-Omer makes me shudder once again at the thought of Panache, which I know we mentioned in the episode, but oh man, it takes me back. And it's my most instantly disliked NoLo that I've had. So let's not think about Panache anymore. I know, right? Let's not think about Panache. Let's play that list of their other brands because it's a little bit of a mini deep dive, but I think it's worth it because they produce some interesting things. Anyway, this is now cut from the main episode. Let's play it. So, just to run through some of the other ones that they make, it's quite the cavalcade of brands and flavours. So, they've got Sombrero as a sub-brand. These are flavoured beers, most of which I think sound pretty horrific.
Okay.
Mojito, vodka, rum, tropical, aromatiste, whatever that is, and red, which I couldn't even find out what that is. It's just red.
I mean, it's not a flavour, is it?
Exactly. Weird. There's Demon, which has standard, extra, mega, ultra, and extreme, which runs all the way from 12% in alcohol up to 20%.
Crikey.
That sounds pretty scary.
Yes.
There's Starberg in multiple styles. So they do Pilsner, Lager from 4%, also up to 20%. And of course, keen listeners, and you did, Pete, you'll recognise Saint-Omer from our review in episode 6 for Panache, which I have to say was one of the worst beers I've ever tasted.
Okay, so that was an interesting set of brands and strengths.
Isn't it?
I think it strikes me as the kind of beers you would maybe try when you were just starting drinking and you just basically just wanted to try everything that was out there.
Teenager in a park? Is that what you mean?
Oh, maybe not. Well, no, I was always over the age of 18 when I was drinking alcohol outside of the family home.
Student union choices then.
Here we go. Yeah, so clearly not aimed at the sophisticated drinker is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, part of me is curious about what a 20% lager tastes like that's kind of mass produced and not pretending to be some kind of, I don't know, specialist, what's the word, produced by monks in Belgium.
Like a Trappist beer. Yeah,
Trappist,
absolutely.
that's it.
Yes.
But yes, for the most part, I shudder with horror, not quite as much as I shudder at Panache.
And of course, the other reason for kind of not having that in the main episode as well is that it has literally nothing to do with NoLo drinks. Like you couldn't even make NoLo versions of these, nor would you want to, I think.
Nor would you. I know, it was just because that's the story of Brasserie de Saint-Omer. And yeah, there you go. Well, we've played it now. Pete, there was one other thing that I wanted to ask you. And this is actually came up from the big chat. So you mentioned, talking about lagers, you mentioned how lager as a style makes up 75 to 95% of beers consumed worldwide.
Yes,
now,
I think so.
I got thinking about that as a statistic, but I took a bit of a kind of swerve on it, and I started thinking, what is the split of just all alcoholic drinks consumed worldwide. And I found like it's impossible to find anything definitive. Partly, as we've covered in some of the other episodes, they don't, producers don't really publish their figures in that way. It's really difficult. But I did find one kind of top 10. It's on a blog from a website called istill.com. It is kind of listed as being the founder opinion, so it's on their blog. It's published in 2023. And basically they list, it's the top 10 selling types of alcoholic drink by global market size in 2022.
Okay.
So I'm not going to go into massive detail about all of it, but looking globally at the alcoholic drinks sold worldwide, number 10, tequila. Number 9, gin. Yep. Number 8, rum. 7, cider, which I was a bit surprised made the list above those. Number 6, vodka. Number 5, whiskey.
Okay.
Number 4, now I'm going to get this wrong, baijiu.
Yes, that's a Chinese distilled spirit.
Yes, I hadn't heard of it. It's made apparently mostly from sorghum. Yeah. Although other grains, including rice, wheat, corn, and millet, are also available in blends throughout the US, at least, and probably worldwide. But it's very well known and a big part of kind of China's drinking culture ever since the Ming dynasty.
Yeah, it's really. I knew it was really popular in China, and obviously because China's now the second most populous country in the world after India, because it's kind of the main drink there. Naturally, it was going to go quite high on this particular list. Worth saying as well, you mentioned that sorghum was an ingredient. So gluten-free beers, up until the last sort of 10 years or so, they were mainly made with sorghum. Because sorghum, which I think is an African kind of cereal, although don't quote me on that, it's kind of naturally gluten-free. So that baijiu, gluten-free, probably doesn't taste very nice. Or you know what? I bet some of them taste very nice because I imagine you've got the same kind of difference in brands from the very cheapest bottle to the most expensive one.
Could well be. Number 3 on the list was liqueurs. Number 2.
Sorry, liqueurs. That's it. Just basically
liqueurs
could be
of
anything.
all sorts. I mean, they define it, I suppose, as that sweetened with sugar or syrup and also contain fruit, herbs and oils, but can be sweet, can be bitter, depending on the flavours used. I'm not sure it's always sweetened. I think sometimes just fortifying it, basically evaporating off some of the liquid, that adds its own, it concentrates the sugars. Yeah. I don't know. Like I say, it's a deep dive that isn't worth getting too much into in that sense.
Indeed.
Number 2, wines. Now, found on another list that they also put wine here, brackets mostly consumed in the European market. I guess by that, Europe probably, yes, but the westernised world, if you like, so Australia, parts of North America as well, but other parts, Anyway, and yes, number 1 would be beer. Beer including lagers, of course. Now, like I say, that's the list of the alcoholic drinks, but what's interesting is to then consider that list of how the NoLo market is responding to it. Are there NoLo versions of all of these? Now, I'm not sure because maybe this is a deep dive for another episode in its own right. But what are your thoughts, Pete? Number 10, tequila. NoLo versions, ever heard of one?
No, I have heard of spirits, sort of NoLo spirits, which are described as being, it's not even like Mexican flavoured. There's a name, there's a term, I can't remember what it was. But no, I don't know whether tequila is
as
one of those.
Mezcal or agave?
Well, maybe one of them might have been agave or something, or agave style NoLo spirit or something like that.
Okay.
I don't know whether tequila is one of those sort of protected designation terms. I really don't know.
I see.
But I certainly haven't seen a NoLo tequila. There may well be one out there. To be honest, tequila's not my favourite drink anyway, so I probably wouldn't if I was going to have
not
NoLo
mine,
version.
but it's used in quite a lot of cocktails that
Yes,
I
it
do
is.
like. So interesting to explore that in its own right, I think. Number 9, gin. Well, we know there's actually
Loads.
quite a few different gins.
Yeah.
Rum. We've also tasted a spiced rum, and I'm sure there are kind of straight rums of all descriptions as well.
Yeah,
these days.
I mean, one thing I would say, just quickly go back to gin, is that actually it's one of the more obvious ones to do because so much of the flavour of it is added ingredients, the botanicals, which isn't true of other things like rum, which is the spiced rum, but not standard rum, which is mainly just kind of sugarcane or whatever, or things like vodka as well. So when you've got a spirit where the biggest sort of like chunk of that flavour, aside from alcohol, is those added ingredients, that's such an obvious candidate to make a NoLo drink out of.
Yeah, you're right. Number 7 was cider. Well, we do know there's quite a lot of cider brands
loads.
these days. Vodka. Now, I got thinking about the vodka one. Again, for everything that you said about gin being a good candidate, vodka to me seems like a really difficult or terrible candidate for a NoLo.
Just entirely pointless, basically.
Water and alcohol without the alcohol. I don't know how you could get even close to doing the job vodka does in another drink or neat without the alcohol being there. But maybe there are. Maybe we need to explore. Yeah,
no, maybe. You know, like you're saying, sort of standard vodka, unflavoured vodka, you're essentially tasting alcohol. And, you know, a few other kind of like bits which are kind of left over from the fermentation and distillation process. But and I'm sure, again, I have seen spirits which, like the tequila one, just kind of, they're not called vodka, they're called something a bit more kind of like generic. But I've not tried one. Maybe we have to, just for I was going to swear then, just for, you know, things and giggles. Ships.
Something for the future. Perhaps.
Absolutely.
What else? Whiskey, number 5 on the basket. You know, so again, a lot of the taste is the alcohol, but there's definitely a whiskey-ness taste to whiskey.
That's the maturation, absolutely, in the barrels, because I know that Scottish or Scotch whiskey, in order to be classed as such, there's a minimum kind of maturation time in these kind of big old kind of like port or wine barrels. Are massive things, and that's where the colour and the kind of the flavours come from. Because again, so whiskey is like beer in that it's made out of barley, and so it's basically barley and water fermented like beer. And then
like bread, then.
And like bread, 100%. And obviously they don't add hops, but they then distill that beer, and that's the base for whiskey. So, yes, there are definitely ways you could add those flavours to it. It's not just alcohol that you're tasting.
Interesting. Well, I mean, Baijiu, I don't know, because I'm not familiar with the drink itself either. Liqueurs, I think there are some NoLo liqueurs, but we haven't got around to them yet. It'll be interesting to see what we can come across. They're not always available. I know for our Christmas episode, we kind of looked for some, thinking there would be some on the market for Christmas, and it's not always as easy as all that. But I'm not saying there aren't any out there at all.
Again, I think because at the end of the day, liqueurs are a base spirit along with a load of flavourings, whether that flavouring, as you say, is sweet, you know, sugar and fruit, or whether it's herbs and spices. In theory, they should make a good candidate for a NoLo.
Yeah. Wines we know, and we know there are some decent ones, and you know, some not so decent ones. And beer being at number 1, well, there's a ton of NoLos, and I would say as well, I think it is the most successful style of NoLo as well as style of alcoholic drink in the world. I think it works really well as a NoLo. Oh yeah, well, most successful as in successfully executed and the biggest selling. Absolutely, yes. Well, every sense of the word. Things. Yeah. There you go. Well, there you have it. That was that kind of weird diversion. I just wanted to make, because it got me thinking. But you know, we'll see if it makes the episode. Yes. Very lastly, Pete, we changed the structure of our episode so that we had 2 tastings, but 3 mini reviews. We did them at the end of the episode. You, at the time of recording, hadn't had Beavertown Laser Crush IPA. Have you had it yet?
I have not. It is on my shelf in my living room. If it was in the fridge, I probably would have had it by now. So it is on my list to drink, though, because I know that you gave it a good review, and I trust your judgment, Chris.
Yeah, it was, a slightly qualified, but a thumbs up, and worth trying at least, I think. I actually went to find the M&S Citrusy and Light White Wine.
Okay.
And they'd sold out.
The rotters.
Or hadn't stocked enough. I don't know. It's one of the two, but I couldn't find it. I'm going to go with that they sold out because it was over a very lovely period of sunshine where lots of people were having barbecues, and maybe that was exactly why they'd sold as much. So I can say I haven't yet tried it either because they didn't have it.
That's fair enough. I mean, it's cheap and it is quite nice, and it has been reviewed quite well elsewhere as well. So yes, it's it's good. It's a nice
don't
drink.
trust their reviews. Only listen to us. That's
Obviously.
what we're saying. Have you had a Leffe since we covered it?
Not since, but I can pretty much remember what it tastes like, and I do agree with what you said in your mini review. But no, I haven't had one since.
Oh, come on, man. Come on. No, I have. I've had several. I've got one in the fridge at the moment, actually. I really stand by it. I still think it's really good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right, I think I've finished with everything I need to talk about. How about you?
I think that's everything from me.
Excellent. All right, nice one. Well, cheers. I'll speak to you next time.
Looking forward to the next one.
Nice
Cheers,
one.
buddy. It's nice to be back. Woo! Good to see you.
Cheers.